Welcome to the deep dive. We're jumping right in today looking at some key cybersecurity news based on a few different sources.
Right.
Our plan is basically to unpack it all, cut through the jargon and figure out what's actually going on, like explaining it to a friend.
Exactly. Because things are changing fast, and the threats, well, they're getting sneakier,
Yeah.
hiding in places you might not expect.
Definitely. So let's start with one that feels, I don't know, both old school and very current. Voice phishing.
Vishing, vishing. It's fascinating how attackers are taking something familiar, like a phone call, and using it for really sophisticated corporate attacks.
Okay.
The sources mention one group, Google calls them UNC 6040, and they're zeroing in on companies that use Salesforce.
Salesforce. So
Yeah.
they're literally just calling people, trying to get into the company's Salesforce system. How does that even work?
Well, it's classic social engineering, but refined. They trick employees, aiming for data theft, maybe extortion later. And often, according to the sources, they talk victims into downloading malicious software. They make it look like a totally legitimate tool.
Like what?
Like, one example given is getting someone to install something that looks exactly like a Salesforce data loader application, but it's fake.
Ah, okay. So you think you're installing something helpful.
Exactly. And bam, they use that to steal sensitive info. It's all about abusing trust to get that deep access.
Wow. Using a seemingly helpful tool against you, that idea of hiding in plain sight, feels like a theme here.
It really does.
Which kind of leads us to the next thing the sources flagged, malware, specifically something called Chaos RAT.
Right, Chaos RAT. YRA stands for Remote Access Trojan.
Hmm.
So think of it like
Okay.
a piece of software that lets an attacker secretly control your computer, like a digital puppet master.
Okay, that sounds bad. And it hits both Windows and Linux?
It does, yeah, which makes it versatile. But what's really tricky, and the sources highlight this, is how it spreads sometimes.
How so? Not just email attachments.
Well, one way they mention isn't your typical malicious attachment. It's disguised as a useful network troubleshooting tool.
Oh, clever.
So you think you're downloading something to fix a problem.
And you're actually installing the problem.
Precisely. Another case of threats hiding inside things we think are helpful or necessary.
Hiding in tools, hiding behind a friendly voice on the phone. It really feels like our older defenses might be struggling, right?
That's a huge point the sources bring up, especially when talking about cloud security, specifically software as a service or SaaS applications.
Like Google Workspace, Salesforce again, Slack, all that stuff we use in the browser.
Exactly. And the issue is our traditional security tools like data loss prevention, DLP, they were built for a different world.
What do you mean?
They mostly look for files, documents being sent across the network edge. But today, you're working inside these SaaS apps. You copy data, you paste it, you share it within Slack or between Salesforce and another integrated app.
So the data isn't always crossing that old network boundary like a file?
Right. It might never look like a traditional file transfer that older DLP tools were designed to spot. It's moving differently, circulating inside these platforms.
Making it really hard for the old security guard dogs to see it?
That's a good way to put it. The sources make it clear it's a major challenge keeping track of sensitive info in these modern environments.
Okay, this leads us, I guess, deeper down the rabbit hole. The sources also talk about threats hidden in the foundations of software. Open source supply chain attacks.
Yes. And this is, well, it's fascinating and maybe a little unsettling. Developers rely heavily on open source code. Think pre-written building blocks from libraries like PyPI for Python, NPM for JavaScript, Ruby gems for Ruby.
Okay, standard practice.
Totally standard. But a supply chain attack means someone sneaks malicious code into one of those shared building blocks.
Wow.
Yeah. So thousands of developers might use that compromised component without knowing. And then that bad code gets pulled into their software, which could be software that you end up using.
And the damage. It sounds like it could be almost anything. The examples seem pretty varied.
Oh, absolutely. The sources list some wild examples. Malicious packages designed to, like, drain cryptocurrency wallets. Others that could literally wipe out a project's entire code base after you install them.
Wow.
Or steal sensitive keys like Telegram API tokens. It just shows the huge range of impact when the very building blocks are compromised.
Okay, one last specific thing the sources mentioned. A patch from HPE for their StoreOnce backup system.
Right. And that's important because it reminds us threats aren't just about end users or cloud apps. They hit critical infrastructure too.
Backup systems feel particularly critical.
They are. And this wasn't just one small fix. HPE patched multiple vulnerabilities. These flaws, could potentially let remote attackers get access, maybe even control the backup system, sometimes without even needing to log in properly.
That sounds like something attackers would love, especially ransomware groups.
Exactly. Backup systems are prime targets before launching ransomware, right? To make recovery harder. So vulnerabilities there are a really big deal.
So let's recap. You've got phishing calls targeting Salesforce, malware disguised as useful tools, data security challenges in SaaS apps, malicious code hiding in software building blocks, and even critical vulnerabilities in backup hardware.
It really paints a picture of threats constantly adapting, finding new ways in, new places to hide, from a simple phone call to the deepest layers of software.
Yeah, the attack surface just keeps shifting, doesn't it? Leveraging, I guess, both our human trust and the complexity of our tech.
That's it, exactly.
So here's something to think about, maybe for you listening. Given how fast this is all changing and how threats pop up in these unexpected places, what's the next surprising place we might see them emerge? Worth pondering.